Done recording. We are a go. All right. And it's that time again. Well, some new shows to watch. Hellraiser reboot with a woman. Never really liked horror movies in general, but there are some that sort of stick around. McDonald's and fast food. Do you care if they're raising prices? Working on a few blog posts and the Delta reading. Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. I'm Steven Tursky. Thanks for joining me. This here is my daily audio digest, published Monday to Friday, and I post all the archives up on my website, stevenstursky.com. And if you'd like to join me a little bit actually I have a newsletter. I just launched this last weekend, I think it was, on Substack. You can go over to stevenstursky.substack.com. That's where my newsletter is now. The idea with that one is to actually, I've been thinking about this. It's a little bit more of a rejuvenation of my writing attempts because I haven't been writing very much, haven't been blogging very much, choosing instead to do this written or this spoken form instead. And I also live broadcast these audio blogs if you want to have a good laugh or join me on the YouTube. You can join me on my main channel, although I am in the process of moving my digest, this podcast, over to its own channel just to keep things separate from each other. But yeah, stevenstursky.com is where you'll find the main archive for a lot of these things. And then, yes, I do have a newsletter. I'm thinking I want to do it once a month. I want to send it out once a month. It might be twice. I'm not sure. It's something that I'm playing around with the idea. Yes, I probably should have started a newsletter years ago, but just signed up for Substack like this past weekend. And what do? Well, I am in the ESL industry, which I know turns off a lot of people from talking to me or to people of my ilk. But I live here in Beijing, China, and this been here for the last 7 or 8 years. But this podcast and a lot of the stuff I do talks about some of the expat stuff that goes on here, what it's like to live in China, and then also some of the things that keep me busy. Notably, studying Chinese. I'm also working on the Delta, which is like a diploma for English teachers, basically. But also some of the other projects that happen here in Beijing as well. So a lot of creative stuff, a lot of arts stuff, music and movies and stuff like that. So thanks for joining me on this one. New shows to watch. Yes, I guess, what is it, October already, end of Canadian Thanksgiving, and new seasons starting all over the place. Not sure about you and your growing up with the TV box, but September and then October especially. Usually it was September 1st for a long time. Not September 1st, like the month of September for a long time marked the beginning of the new TV series season. Then it got pushed back to October. And then in the last decade or so, it's all over the place. New shows are starting and ending all times of the year. They only run for 6 episodes. Which, to tell you the truth, some of the TV shows that run for 6 episodes are probably some of the better ones. And I'm thinking Chernobyl, Ricky Gervais's work, not just with Afterlife, but the original Office was only 6 episodes. Hilarious stuff. Now, the American version is also very funny. So some of the shorter runs of TV shows seem to be, I don't know, a little bit tighter, a little bit better. I think of also Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That was a funny show that I remember watching quite a bit of. I know it's not like the old days, the late 80s, early 90s, Star Trek Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Cheers, Seinfeld, Frasier, if you remember those. I mean, MASH was the other one, was sort of a long-running show. How long did MASH run for? Good question. I actually can't remember. I know my mom watched it quite a bit. But that was sort of like parents' generation. Nowadays, with Family Guy, this one has just started up again. I think they do 21 episodes per season. Simpsons, haven't watched it in a long time. Don't care, have no intention to. Simpsons is a lot gentler humor than Family Guy, for sure. And people who've watched Family Guy say, I should probably also look into not just American Dad. The Orville is also done by the same guy. But what was it? That something in, oh goodness, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'll remember it later on. It's not Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy is way before this. It's another one. Goodness me, I can't remember. Anyway, another TV show. I don't watch too many TV shows. I don't have much time to watch them. But I did finally find these. Family Guy has started again. I also see that there's a new Hellraiser reboot. Honestly, I don't think I've actually ever seen the original Hellraiser with Pinhead. I know the idea, like the whole concept, but that one and the TV show, or no, so the movie that's they're here. That one, which not Paranormal Activity. That's way later. Oh goodness, boy, and yet I claim to try to make movies every now and then, right? You know the ones I'm talking about. They're in long-standing public mind memory sort of thing. They since it is October, I guess horror movies and all the sort of Halloween stuff comes to the fore at this time. In China, not a big deal. I mean, the big deal, the big deal in China right now in October is the National Day break, which just ended, and the Congress. That's going to happen starting, I guess, this week at some point. So there's a new election happening, and that votes are being cast and everything. That's the big news here in China. Halloween, distant thought, to tell you the truth. All the candies and stuff like that. You grew up with trick-or-treating. Not so much. You can't really find a lot of them here in China at all. So, yeah. And the weather is still, although it's getting cooler outside, it's not like Halloween weather it is what I remember it to be in Canada, where it's like, is it going to snow? Is it not going to snow? Do we wear our parkas or not, sort of thing? Is it safe to walk down the streets because you're going to slip or hurt yourself, or that sort of thing. Other than that, I finally watched the first couple of episodes of the new season of Family Guy. Hellraiser, I'm going to find the original. I think it's on YouTube as well. I think you can find it there. I should probably watch it already. Have you ever watched the original Wolfman, the original Dracula, Frankenstein? Like, those are some of the classic movies, and it's kind of how cheesy they are. Although the Wolfman was sort of one of the forebears of that CG, that transition of showing someone change shape on screen. I don't think it'd been done very much before the Wolfman, where a guy turns into a wolf on screen with a bunch of dissolve cuts, basic transitions. That's it. And then later on, the next big werewolf movie, it wasn't Silver Bullet, which is based on Stephen King's cycle of the werewolf novel. I think it was An American Werewolf in Paris. I think that was the next one where they actually had prosthetics growing on screen, and that was sort of the next big jump in werewolf movies, as far as I remember, as far as I can tell, the history of werewolf movies. I'm not a big fan of horror movies, like especially like the schlock horror stuff. I don't care for it. I think, and especially as I've grown older and traveled a lot more, I think there's too much horror as it is, and I much prefer the comedy stuff than anything else. So that's why I kind of gravitate towards things like Family Guy, and even Cyanide and Happiness. That's another comic strip and shorts that I watch on YouTube. It's dark humor, right? Very, very dark humor. Some of it. Why do I find it funny? I guess because it's just so obscene. It's so obscene, and it's so blatantly pointing a finger at something that you can't help but laugh, because you're like, yeah, that is kind of true. Although you kind of hope that most people aren't like that, right? That's kind of, well, yeah, these things do happen, and you always hear about it happening to someone somewhere, something over there, but you never expect those sort of really weird dark humor type things to happen to you. I mean, I can't even think of an example of, because you don't want to think of these things. They're poking fun of things that you don't want to happen to anyone ever. But you read the news every now and then. Sure enough, someone gets their PP caught in something that they shouldn't, that most people wouldn't think of using, or maybe someone meets another person and things don't go as planned, and all of a sudden they're a different headline, right? Of course, I'm being generic because trying to keep it a little bit PC here. I've been going on about the Ukrainian war over the last couple of weeks, and I think people are getting a little bit tired of me talking about that. Not that these places actually make fun of war too much, although Family Guy does. Family Guy does make some take some shots at quite a few different historical interpretations of what war is and what's happened. So, yeah, dark humor. I know it's not for everybody. Some of it's funny. Some of it's kind of like, really? In 20 years, what do you think? These animated shows, especially like Family Guy, you think they're going to be considered classic? Like, keep in mind, Simpsons is 30 years. South Park, 30 years. And South Park is even worse than Family Guy. I can't watch South Park. I don't think it's funny anymore. It's too much. Too much. The early few seasons were kind of funny. But then they just went, it says they were trying to be offensive, whereas Family Guy is trying to sort of show, cast a little bit of light on how things are, even though we like them not to be that way, sort of thing. One show I did find, and this one was, I was actually a little bit, I don't want to say shocked, but surprised they went the route that they did, and pleasantly surprised that it works. Casting a black guy as Louis the Vampire in Interview with the Vampire? Yeah. When you read the book, if you've ever read the book, Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, this is written back in 1976. We're talking like this thing is over 40 years old, 46 years old at this point. Eesh, geezers, right? Remember the movie from 1994, Interview with the Vampire, with Christian Slater and Tom Cruise? A lot of people said it was cheesy. Some people said it wasn't. I like the movie because Guns N' Roses did a cover version of Sympathy for the Devil. Fantastic. Probably one of the songs, one of the few cover songs ever to actually be better than the original. The original having been done by Rolling Stones. So I found this Interview with the Vampire new TV series, and is it HBO? Who's writing this? I don't know who's doing this one. And although there's a little, they play up the sort of man-on-man homosexuality just a little bit much for my liking and for my interpretation and remembrance of what the book was like. It actually, not just the homosexuality, but the story, the casting, it works. I've only watched the first episode. I think there's only 2 episodes available so far. But it's a lot more gritty than the 1994 movie adaptation. There's a lot more swears. So it really does take things down to, it's like the Dark Knight grittiness, but with like the Sopranos and Rome sort of street talk sort of thing that goes on. So in that case, it actually works very well, especially when you look at, they cast a black guy as Louis the Vampire, giving him this sort of depth of character wherein if it was a black guy at that time facing the circumstances that he was in, what choice would he make? And I mean, you can see it as you see the story sort of unfold. So far, actually kind of impressed with the series, with at least the first episode. Haven't got to the second episode yet. Who knows? Maybe I'll say this is shit, and they should just go back to I don't know what would be the original, right? But Anne Rice, so she wrote that she wrote a whole series of books based on the Vampire Lestat. Of course, my remembrance is 1994 version with the Guns N' Roses soundtrack, Sympathy for the Devil, which they've never played live. I thought they would play it in Hong Kong years ago. They didn't. Too bad. Anyway, if you have a chance, Interview with the Vampire, the new series reboot. That's the one. Now there's Hellraiser one. This Hellraiser movie is has been rebooted with a woman as Pinhead. I've never seen the original. I probably should. I might try to find it. And I don't know. It's 40 years old already, so they've made multiple sequels, all of which I think are variations of the same theme. Not sure if they're any good. Haven't really seen any of them, to tell you the truth. Again, not really interested too much in the horror stories, unless it's like religious horror. Religious horror seems to attract me a little bit more, like Paranormal Activity. There's a few like Ringu, the Japanese version of like the Ring and stuff like that. I know that's not too religious, but things like that where sort of if there's ever a Latin incantation, that seems to be a little bit more like, oh, okay, I'll have a look at that. What's it? The famous one, The Exorcist. So that one's good. Exorcist, the sequels, well, they are what they are, but the first one for sure, very kind of shocking. And then Rosemary's Baby, actually, that book was very good, to tell you the truth. To read the book, watching the movie was, I think they could redo it, to tell you the truth. But the book was also actually very interesting to read. Anyway, this McDonald's thing, moving on to a happier subject. McDonald's. So this came up actually because the whole argument about inflation and with a lot of people I know moving back to their homelands, the idea of inflation has actually come up. Like, how much do things actually cost? And one thing, read this news article that McDonald's has had to increase its prices, or if they keep the prices the same, it's not just McDonald's, it's Burger King, KFC, all these guys, if they keep the price the same, they just lessen the amount of food or materials that they give you. So instead of getting a 10-piece chicken nuggets, you get 8, basically, right? So same price, but the nuggets are smaller, and there's not as many. So that's inflation by another. What they call it shrinkflation. So it's not actual inflation. You're not paying anything more per piece necessarily, but you are, because you're getting fewer but for the same price. So you are actually paying more for the same piece per piece. It's just that they haven't changed the sticker price on the menu. Do you guys care? Do you guys eat fast food very much? I mean, I was thinking about getting McDonald's this morning, and then I'm looking at this going, there's the environmental concern and the packaging. The guy has to come over here, and I'm not sure if I really want to deal with that either. And I was like, I could just make bacon and eggs myself. And so I ended up doing that, thinking, why not? But I know there is a certain quality to McDonald's food, to this fast food, that you can't replicate at home, for good reason, because the stuff you make at home, you actually know what you're putting into it and where, well, most of those ingredients have been. I mean, obviously you don't know exactly where the eggs have come from, or there's only so much you can research the bacon before it's kind of like, all right, you give up. You just kind of, you got to take your chances, sort of thing. But the oils and the storage of the food and where the factories are for McDonald's and other fast food joints, I mean, it gives it a certain quality. Let's put it that way. Honestly, most times when I think about having McDonald's or any sort of fast food, either for breakfast or later on, I actually just go Chinese instead. I'm like, because I'm in China, I'll be able to get McDonald's anywhere around the world. There's sometimes I'll probably have to because of other suitable options. But Chinese food, like Chinese breakfast or a Chinese dinner, I've been having lots of tang su li ji lately. That's sweet and sour pork. Again, if I'm going to choose something like that, I'll choose the local flavors more than the internationally recognized brands, basically. Been working on a few writings. Finally had time to sit down and put some words down onto the blog again. I have started a newsletter. If you want to head over to stevenstursky.substack.com, that is where I'm publishing my newsletter. I've only published the one post on the weekend. The idea being that this is actually, since it's a lot easier way to sort of create a newsletter, far easier than MailChimp is or was. Now I'm actually looking to probably do this. I'm thinking maybe once every 2 weeks might be a good idea. I don't know why. I was thinking once a month because I don't want to overload people's email boxes and stuff like that. And I'm thinking I also don't want to commit that much time to creating every month like that. Every 2 weeks becomes a lot more work than just once a month. But and I was thinking at the same time, I was thinking that this would be a substantial piece of writing. Like, so if you almost if you were to print out this newsletter, it would be almost a short booklet to read, sort of thing. Like that is that sort of amount of content per month, all of it being sort of like the best of some of the things that I've written, seen, produced over the last month, some things to think about along those lines. And of course, this one's going to be for free because, I mean, a lot of the stuff, I mean, it's just about my life and some of the things that I do here in China and whatever I'm doing around wherever I am. Other than that, today I did spend some time reading for the Delta. I know I'm pushing up against I'm over the 20 minutes already doing this Delta stuff. I will talk a little bit more about this tomorrow because some interesting points have popped up about English testing or testing in general, standardized testing, and then also dealing with grammar points and how to be able to teach grammar or instruct people about how to use proper grammar and what is proper grammar. It's a very good question. I mean, it's grammar is changing. English is a living language. It's a fluid language. It's very accepting of other words and constructs from around the world, from different languages and pronunciations and everything. So, what is it that is sort of the standard measure that we go by? I think that's a conversation for another day because I did go through quite a bit of it today, and there's a lot more that I have to get through. I'm on week number 6 already, and the exam I've been told is December 7th. So we're now 2 months away officially from hopefully finishing module 1 of the Delta 3-parter, which hopefully by this time next year I'll be done the whole thing. But anyway, all right, folks, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Show notes and tracks up on my website, stevenstursky.com. And of course, stevenstursky.substack.com is where you can find the new newsletter. You can sign up there. It's free access. And you can look forward to that maybe at least once a month, if not twice a month. All right, thanks, folks. Again, we will talk again. Have a good one. Bye-bye.